flow state. I can't wait to see straight. I can't wait to change fate. I can't wait to flee hate. Keeping all my good traits, letting all the mistakes go. I beat the foe, I take control. Spread good vibes is all I'm told. Never sold, there's always more. I can grow and I'll explore all the past that I can map out in my head. It's like a tour. Know the world is evil, people strip you right down to the core, but you know that you can be way better than you were before. For your mother, for your father, for your sister or your toddler, you can be the one that makes them feel the best when they're around you. So don't be a lazy coward, just listen for an hour. Sean and Tyler about to show you just how you can hold the power.
Welcome back to the Flow State with Tyler and Sean the Flock. In this week's episode, we go over topics like harm reduction, the Mandela Effect. I update everybody on the Fitness and Wellness Challenge. Tyler uncovers an illusion of scarcity and his need to prove people wrong. And then we talk about and we go over greatness and how qualified we really are to step up to the plate. Guys, if you enjoy this podcast, please consider subscribing. To grow this podcast, we need you to rate and review. We are available in all podcast platforms. Guys, we hope you enjoy this podcast today.
Are we live?
Always live, baby.
Oh, yeah. We have to give our first official shout out.
What? To whom?
To whoever made the song for us.
Yeah, we got to give a shout out to Max Eisenberg, who came out with the Flow State. I'm about to see straight.
I'm about to move white Timon State.
Yeah, Max Eisenberg is one of the kids on my lacrosse team, and he was nice enough to, I
encouraged him.
Well, I paid him to
to. How you paid him?
Yeah, man. Dude, we're making bags of money off this podcast. Do you think that is going to affect me whatsoever? We've got bags. Back up the Brinks truck in here.
Not a dent.
Dentless 2019.
How old is he? Is senior? Junior?
No, junior. So 16 or 17.
Does he make the beats himself and he raps?
Yeah.
He has a little studio?
Yeah, he has some software on his computer that he uses.
Really? How'd you know? Did he does he play music in the locker room and stuff?
Well, we were on the bus heading back from a game. He wasn't even on the bus. They were, the kids like to play music on the way back to the school. All this trap music they like to play and whatever other mumble rap they like to play. And he
love that mumble rap.
And he someone put on his song and they were like, yo, this is Max Eisenberg. And I was like, oh, that's pretty fly. I'm like, I wonder if he can do this for me. So the next day of practice, I'm like, hey, Max, I heard you spit some bars, man. You sound pretty good. What do you think about making I know, I said it just like that too. I said, why don't you put together a intro for my podcast for my brother and I? He goes, yeah, sure, no problem. So he's like, all right, send me the podcast. He sent me the podcast, and he literally 2 days later, he sent me that. I was like, damn, that's solid.
Wow. Max, what's his rap name? Max Berg? M-Berg?
M-Berg, probably. M-Berg. One of the many talented Jewish rappers coming up in the game. Him and Little Dicky.
Wow. Him and Little Dicky and Hoodie Allen? Can't forget Hoodie Allen.
I'm Hoodie. I'm Hoodie, bitch.
And then you got, is G-Eazy Jewish?
I don't know. Good question.
Maybe he'd probably be Jay Easy.
Be Jay Uzi.
Jay Uzi. little Jay Uzi Vert.
Jay Uzi.
That'll be my rap name. Little Jay Uzi Vert.
Out of control, man. Out of control.
So good. So good. What's going on with your challenge? Give me an update.
So we had 43 people sign up for the challenge.
How many people go to your
within the classes, the regular classes, we probably have 100 people, and then total members, we probably have 160 to 170. So, pretty good numbers. And we had some people from outside the gym come in as well. We have 2 weeks left in the challenge. So this is week 5. So we're finishing up week 5, and then we have week 6. So next Sunday, we're going to be doing a party to finish things up. and we're gonna do some like cool little paper plate awards, and then we're gonna get some shirts and hand those out as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's kind of a little bit let down just because it kind of lost some steam, but I think I think we got to let go of that expectation that it's going to feel a certain way the entire time. And, that initial spark becomes normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not always going to feel like fireworks. It's now normal. Like fireworks become normal after a certain point after watching them for so long, right?
Yeah. And I've done these competitions before, and they start out with so much momentum, and it's so challenging to keep that momentum and that intensity or that enthusiasm up by the end. But usually there's like 3 to 5 people who really do buy in, and over the course of that time transform in front of you, and you're like, holy shit, just for those few people alone, this was worth it.
Yeah, it's pretty all bang on. Like all the people who have been tuning into our live stream on Wednesday nights, I think those are the people who are going to see the most benefit from it. But I think our mind gets caught up in the ones that we don't get, and we kind of focus so much more of our attention on that. So I think if we think about like 5 or 6 people out of 40. When you look at that on a larger scale, that's a pretty damn good percentage. So if you have 10,000 people that sign up for something and you get, what's that, about 20%, let's say, actually do well, that's 2,000 people that you profoundly change. And, then there's degrees of change that go outside of that, like instead of a person having 8 drinks in the night, now they're having 6. They may not have instantaneous change, but over time they're just mitigating the damage being done, and it's more of harm reduction. So I think that's the spectrum. We go from like on one side of the spectrum, it's just harm reduction, and just you still have the same quality of life, but you may be a little bit better based upon minimizing some of those internal external factors that promote long-term like detriment to your health and well-being. And then you have people on the opposite side of the spectrum who are like thriving off of this new lifestyle.
Yeah. And there's also a part of it that you're planting the seed in these people that maybe not over the 30 days will they completely transform. Maybe something in life came up, but they learned something over the course of the 30 days or however long your challenge was, that plants the seed, and it continues to embed, maybe even subconsciously, and it's hard to measure that.
Agreed. FYI, real quick, Tal, does this sound a little different? The mic.
The mic is coming in not like a little.
Can you demonstrate the sound?
Tough to say. It's like a little bit like a more abrasive than usual in a way, like maybe not quite as soft. I don't know.
Nice.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like
yeah, that's a little better. I mean, not better, but that's describing it. That's a little softer, yeah.
So it's softer like this.
Yeah, softer like that. Yeah, that sounded better. No, that sounds better.
All right, how about now?
Similar.
Yeah. How about now?
Maybe similar.
How about now?
Same.
How about now?
The same.
It's weird. Maybe it's just because I'm sitting over here and there's a little bit of background noise and there's the going off.
That's what I think it is. Like right when you started, like I just noticed like the background noise. I just think it's like the ambient sounds sweeping in.
Scoop that up. Yeah, there's a water treatment plant right behind me. Okay, so that was the 7:45 mark and the 9-minute mark. Okay, so, yeah, so you're absolutely right, and I think when for me personally, I would love to have everybody do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself a failure if everybody doesn't do well. Because I feel like, in a lot of ways that if someone doesn't do well, it's my responsibility that they didn't do well.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's also the expectations that you set. When you cast a wide net like that and the barrier for entry is a little bit lower, you're going to draw people who might not be at a 10 on commitment level.
It's a very good point.
So if I imagine the people who over the course did receive those phenomenal transformations or were probably, if you had asked them before they started, what commitment level are you? They probably would have told you they're 10 out of 10. I'll do whatever it takes. And not everyone's ready for that. So what, like we were talking before last week, the 7-day food log as a way to kind of weed out who's in, who's out. I've done these competitions before, and it's the same thing. Like 7 days, even in the first week, you see people not log everything, and they will kind of drop off the face of the earth like 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
And the people who log everything throughout the 30 days, they're like, oh my God, like I lost X amount of inches, X amount of weight. Their before and after pictures are phenomenal. So it's really the level of commitment, their level of buy-in, and it's catching on that moment when they are ready to change. And then if you have that person, then that's who you can really serve and do whatever it takes to help them get to where they want to go. Whoa, I'm coming in as purple. What's going on? Oh, there I am.
I can't believe you. You went to another dimension there, into another flow state.
I was in a flow state.
I think we should have
DMT.
that. That'd be pretty cool if we did this and all of a sudden, like, you started glowing every time you reached a flow state.
Whoa, you're like in Saiyan mode?
More like the Last Dragon mode.
Oh, yeah. Like, Leroy!
Bruce Leroy!
Leroy!
Bruce Leroy! You a chicken! Anyway, if you've never seen The Last Dragon, I would definitely take a look at that. I actually followed them on Instagram for quite some time. It's a fantastic Instagram handle.
Sookie ain't a plan, Sookie Sue. You
Suck it to me, I suck it to
you.
Yeah, the last song, you're a dragon, you're a dragon.
I really just remember Sookie, Icky, Ha, Sick. Probably because that movie would come on all the time.
All the time.
I'm definitely going to watch this. And you watch like the first 20 minutes. You're like, all right, I'm good. And then you tune back in at the end when he...
No. This is one of those movies that comes on at the same point in the movie, and you never actually see the whole movie. Oh,
that's so true. It's like they're in the alley and they're like snapping their fingers and like they're playing dominoes or something. That's what I remember.
I get it at the part where they're trashing the dad's like pizza restaurant.
Yeah, it's so sad
every time. And then the whole thing, like they just kick the door and they break the glass. It's just like so unnecessary.
Or the point when he's got his head on his hand on his head, he's pushing him in the water.
Yes, and then he whips his hair back, and the water goes, and then it's like, damn, I gotta go watch that. It is actually on Netflix now. It is on Netflix, so I might have to take a look at that, take a gander.
I think I might just go for the sick. Yeah.
That's actually one of those movies, the Mandela Effect, that if you thought about it now, you would know all those scenes, and then you would watch it, and you're like, what the hell movie am I watching?
Right? There's Mandela Effect. What is the Mandela Effect?
The Mandela Effect. Do you remember that movie back in the 90s where, Sinbad the comedian?
Uh-huh.
He played a genie, and he played a genie, and he had like these gold robes with a little turban on, and it was called Shazam.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, so most people will believe that happened, but actually that never existed. There was you could like look at the movie poster and be like, oh, I remember that, but it never happened.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So,
gotcha. I'm like thinking of like the movie like Unnecessary Roughness with Sinbad. I'm like, I remember that movie.
It was Necessary Roughness, by the way. So the Mandela Effect is basically the reason it's called Mandela Effect is because many people believe that Nelson Mandela died back in like the 80s, and it was reported in textbooks and stuff. But like it like there's a glitch in the matrix, or someone went back in time and changed something, because like in your mind you're like, no, this definitely happened, and then you look at it now and it's like someone went back and changed everything.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's like little like logos. You're like, yo, it looks like this. And then you go and look at it now and you're like, dude, this is not what I remembered it being. So people, instead of like admitting that like maybe their memory isn't as good or they conflate things, they go, no, someone went back in time and changed something. Or it's a conspiracy that they're doing this to like plot against everybody or something like that. So there was a Mandela effect when it comes to like Sinbad back in the 90s. There's a Mandela effect if you look at like Rice Krispies. You just Google Mandela effect and yeah, I like little jingles that you think you remember.
Right.
You know, that's another way of it. But yeah, again, like they, you know, it goes back to they think Nelson Mandela died, but now he died later on, and they think they went back and like changed things.
Speaking of Rice Krispies, they don't make Rice Krispie treat cereal anymore. Did you know that?
I don't think they do, but I think that's one of those things they you know do for a limited amount of time and then bring back, and then 1,000 people get diabetes, and they're like,
Dude, we used to crush.
It would last maybe 12 hours in the house, maybe 12 hours.
What was your favorite cereal?
That was it right there. But the problem was only the first bowl was like the Bangin' Bowl, because from there, then it was just Rice Krispies with sugar on top. It wasn't clusters anymore. So there was like 8 to 10 good clusters, and you kind of had to like just get those in a bowl.
Them out. Yeah.
You like sift them. You needed like a special Rice Krispie treat cereal sifter that got all the Rice Krispies through and just left the clusters. So you just had a bowl of clusters that would just cut the shit out of your mouth.
Your mouth, yeah.
Oh my God. Those jagged pieces would just cut the crap out of your mouth.
It's like Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch, if you just want to destroy the roof. And this is delicious. Just dripping blood out of your mouth.
Oh, it is so good. The sugar just gets into your wounds and makes you feel good.
It's so funny that you mentioned the clusters. So there's this granola. It's called Purely Elizabeth. Do you have
that'll cut your mouth up good, I imagine.
Yeah. So Purely Elizabeth, it's the same idea. There's like clusters. So if I want to snack on it, I'll eat all the clusters out.
Yeah.
But then it'll like leave like just like grainy granola residue.
Yep.
So I'll just open another one and leave the grainy granola residue in that bag. So Dominique sends me a video. She's like, what is this? It's like 3 bags of Purely Elizabeth that are all like half full with like Purely Elizabeth crumbs. She's like, this is not okay.
And now we broke up.
And yeah, that was the end of our relationship.
It's funny because like, how many like leftover of like one piece of something you have in your fridge or in your cupboard. Like I have like 1 rice cake in a bag and then 3 other bags of rice cakes. And I'm still not eating that rice cake.
I do the same exact thing. Dominique's like, you're not allowed to open up the new package until you finish the other one. But I'm like, I want the new one. I do the same thing with toothpaste.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to fucking fight for that last drop of toothpaste. Kidding me?
Hashtag not worth.
Yeah, not worth it. I'm going to like squish the bottom of this tube to like grind out a drop. Fuck that.
Well, I think it's the idea also why there's always 1 can of food, 1 piece of fruit left in the grocery store, because everybody believes that piece of fruit or that can, there's something defective with it.
Yeah.
So it's like scientifically proven that like if you put like more stuff out, there's not like an idea of scarcity. Like there's a diminishing return on that eventually. So like if there's only like a few left and a lot of products, and that people will shy away from it, especially something like produce, because everybody thinks there's something wrong with it.
Right.
Instead of like a Tickle Me Elmo, you'll get that last one. Even though you might be like, oh, what's wrong with this one? Instead of thinking, oh, I'm lucky, I got one.
But food is definitely that way. Or even if like you get one and there's like a bunch of them out and you pull one out and like the label's a little askew.
Yep.
And you're like, putting this one's defective. I can't have this a skewed label.
It's going to affect my nutritional value.
So challenge is finishing up this Sunday.
Next week about, and then we're going to do the reweigh-ins, and then we have to do retesting. It's going to be interesting to see how many people actually do the retest. I mean, I got to do some meditating and see what comes up, and again, like it's not the question of should, and this is a cool little thing I picked up from Kyle Cease yesterday. Whenever you have a question of should or shouldn't, ask what do you want?
Instead of should or shouldn't, ask what do you want?
Yes.
Oh, I should do this. I should do that.
No,
What
it's
do I
more
want?
of should I do this? Should I do that?
Well, what do I want?
No, what do you really want?
Right.
That's the question we should be asking, or not should be, but that's the question that you want to ask to get like outside of old story.
Yeah, yeah.
And so to give you an example, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you just kind of like your background with Kyle Cease. I never kind of got the background of Kyle Cease. I know you've gone to see him in LA. And does he have like a podcast that you listen to from him that you get consistently? What's kind of his background?
So Kyle Cease, you might remember him from a couple movies, Not Another Teen Movie and 10 Things I Hate About You. So he was an actor. He's also a comedian. He had a Comedy Central special. He's like general, like everybody, like not too racy. He's just like a comic, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But he's been doing it for a very long time. He was actually a stand-up comedian when he was like 10 or 12 years old. So wow. he would get hired like nightclubs and all that kind of stuff. So he like started very young, and then he started doing some acting, and he made it as a comedian. Started getting some acting gigs, but he was just kind of miserable, and he was like, "What do I really want to do?" And he had some crippling anxiety, etc. And then he decided to basically stop doing the comedy circuit and said, like, I want to work on transformation, because he had done some Tony Robbins stuff to get himself out of depression and anxiety. And he was like, this is what I want to do. He's like, so I'm going to combine comedy with transformational work. So like basically when he was my age, let's say like late 20s, early 30s, our age, he started doing like videos and using his talents as a comedian and connections as a comedian. And he basically started doing like a college circuit, like doing talks and seminars at like colleges and that kind of stuff, and started doing workshops. And then he's just puts out tons of free content. And years ago that I started picking up on, I found him on Facebook, and he had a cool little video, and I like just started following him. And like I said, all the content was free. And then he did he was doing a 2-day seminar out in Glenvale, California, and I decided to fly out there and do the 2-day seminar. And then he did another seminar here in Fort Lauderdale that I'm actually doing again, like just to kind of hear him again speak next Sunday. But,
oh, shit. Very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been following him for quite some time. I actually have a membership to his membership site too. They do weekly call-ins, and there's like homework assignments and that kind of stuff. So it's not too far off probably from the things that you're doing. But the biggest thing that he, as an approach to your own self-improvement, your own self-growth, is that you have the answers. And most people are trying to sell you strategies, but eventually, once you have enough strategies, it's about putting the work in yourself, and then self-reflection, and then going back inward again and again and again, and then kind of like coming out, and then doing following through with whatever you hear and touch with, and then back inside again to kind of like that little cycle, whatever. So I think I've been following his stuff for about 3 years now, and that's kind of one of the inspirations that I had for changing from Motivational Monday to Transformational Thursday, or Motivational Thursday to Transformational Thursday way back, was because, the idea of motivation is that when I get this thing, then I'll be complete. Whereas transformation is when I let go of the idea that I'm not complete, those things will come to me, or I'll have everything that I need. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So KyleCease.com, Kyle Cease on Facebook. I don't think he has an Instagram. I think he does have a Twitter too as well. But the other nice concept that he really brings home, and that makes me feel kind of, it resonates with me a lot, is this idea of like reinvesting into yourself and being that apple tree. And we kind of talked about this before. So an apple tree, to be healthy, just gives and gives and gives and gives. And, mm-hmm. and is, one with itself and one with nature when it's just open. And I think my entire life, and I'm probably pretty similar to you, is that when we are living in lack, we're afraid to give because we don't believe that we are enough. We believe that we live in scarcity. We're not going to have enough. And in a lot of ways, we've been taught that way for a very long time, that, at any moment the rug can be pulled out from underneath you. But when you live as an apple tree, your purpose is to give, and to give selflessly. And, you feel better and you feel more open when you do that. And obviously the purpose behind that is not because you're trying to get something, but giving tells the universe that you're open to receiving.
Yeah.
Right? If your arms are closed, wrapped around you, how can you have, like, to protect yourself? How can they then also be there to receive?
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a little bit more lately, the idea of abundance and scarcity. When I did the Strong Coach last year. And so I was in a program with a bunch of other fitness coaches. And when I saw them doing well, a part of me was jealous. A part of me was, if they're doing well, does that take away from what I'm doing? So that idea of scarcity and that belief of, rather than celebrating their wins, it was causing me to be self-conscious. And now that I'm doing Online Coach Accelerator, as I'm seeing people have wins and signing clients, I'm actually I still have a little bit of those feelings come up, but depending on the day, I can either celebrate, or depending on the day, I could get self-conscious. So it's like, I didn't, it's still, I'm human. I didn't change completely, but the fact that I am aware of it, and then I can tell, like, some days I can celebrate, and I'm like, oh man, that must mean I'm in abundance. And then the days where I'm like, oh, this is like making me self-conscious. Oh, maybe there's a little bit of scarcity. Maybe there's something there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely click with that. I find it hard to, I find that what comes up a lot of the time when other people are doing things is that, but, obviously on the cerebral side of things, you realize that this is just the image that they're putting out. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're like all the time, which again kind of goes back to the idea of all you know is how you feel and what they did.
Say that one more time. All you know is
how you feel and what they did.
Right.
So that kind of more applies to people who you think wronged you. Right? Like if someone shows up late, how you feel and what they did. They did this, I feel like this from it. But obviously that's not the whole picture, because you don't realize, and again, I use an example of, like, someone shows up late and you're like, I feel disrespected because they showed up late. So if they showed up late, I feel disrespected. I'm in the right, they're in the wrong. But maybe you don't realize that on the way there, they had to stop because there was a child dead on the side of the road or some shit. I know that sounds really morbid, or maybe there was a duck crossing and they had to help people get, like, the ducks get across or something like that. So there's an extenuating circumstance. So we want to become a victim so quickly that we're unable to actually open up and say, hey, wait a second, like, why was this person not here? So we jump right to the conclusion that they wanted to hurt me because of this action, because of we're reactive off of how we feel versus staying open and just being with whatever that is. So again, our job isn't necessarily to push away those feelings or suppress those feelings. Our job, in my perspective, and what I believe right now, and again, this thing ebbs and flows, is that when that comes up, it's an opportunity for it to be seen. So I'll give you an even more on the nose example. Is I was doing a float this last Saturday, and as I was in the float tank, I got about 45 minutes in, and I was just kind of being there with affirmation, like, I'm just love, I am here, I'm just this moment, and I'm just love. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not love. I want to fucking murder everybody, and I hate everybody. And there was such a relief in me allowing myself to say that in my mind and be heard. Does that make sense?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%.
So
yeah,
like
you
for
gotta
me,
let that voice come out. You gotta let that feeling come out.
Yeah.
If you just try to keep, like, being positive to it, and, like, it's just like a kid that wants to be heard. Are you just gonna shove them and push them away?
Yeah.
But it's also, you're judging it too, because, like, I don't want to be the person who says that. So it's like that. So you're battling that judge and the child, like fighting one another. The child wants to be heard, and the judge is like, no, you can't be the type of person who can feel that because that's wrong.
Yeah, and something also that kind of came up in last night's call for the Kyle and the Absolutely Everything group was whatever you're resisting, try to do it, try to be it, try to do it, try to like actually allow it. So like a lot of the time we're out of flow, we're out of connection, right? Disconnected. So we're like, all right, how do I get to connection? So basically what you're saying is by being disconnected, you are not complete and you're not okay. So that is the universe is going to continue to give you that until you actually surrender to the fact that it's okay that you are disconnected.
Yeah.
So what he invites you to do, and obviously in a non-detrimental, not non-self-harming way, is invite yourself to be disconnected. Try to be disconnected as much as you can.
Huh.
Right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to prove to yourself that it doesn't matter. So think about a nice, easy, tangible example is like when you have insomnia. Try not to sleep.
Yeah, right.
Right? Or if your mind is going crazy and all you want to think about is like, all right, don't think about anything. And then all you do is think about everything, right? Try to think about everything.
Right.
Like take a second, and this is to our listeners too. Try to think about whatever you want and see what comes up. Go ahead. Literally, my mind is blank.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's so funny that you were saying that about the sleeps. I was sleeping the other night because of the daylight savings time, and I had to be up at 5 a.m. And Dominique was like, "You're just stressing out about this," and she was like, "Why don't you just try like who gives a shit if you get 2 hours of sleep, 1 hour of sleep?" And I've been doing that the past couple nights and just being like, "Fuck it," and like I think there's also an element of not being too connected with when I'm getting tired and maybe being on my phone too much, and then maybe being drawn into being excited about the people who've been signing up for my program. So I think there's an element to it of that. But I was like, all right, when I'm tired, I'm just gonna go to bed, and I just been kind of laying down and giving myself like a moment to just like, am I tired? Am I not tired? And then it's been good last couple nights, some good sleep. I like that idea of like if you're don't like if like try not to sleep, like try to wake up, or like try to think about everything.
Or like try to be anxious. Go ahead, like try to be as anxious as you want, you know what I mean? And
I just like try to try to move my face
and go ahead and try to do that for a prolonged amount of time and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like the way I equate this, and I'm a huge Cesar Millan fan, and I know you are too, Tyler, because we used to watch it when we were younger with that. But you know when he would like put the leash on the dog, and then all of a sudden the dog would freak out. So he would be like, "This is good. This is good. You need to get this out. Let's go." And the dog would just like, and he would chew on the leash and he'd roll around and he would do all this stuff. He would throw the biggest fit ever. He's like, good, good, good. Get this out. And then after like 3 minutes of the dog freaking out, it just lays there. Its tongue hangs out and it's just like, all right. And then he's just like, all right, now we walk. You know what I mean? So it's like we are so like once we start to bridge or even approach that idea, we back off way too quickly.
Right.
You know, we instead of actually inviting it and be like, all right, man, I am that vessel inside the storm that's just going to go ahead and ride this out. And the storm will come to pass and this is only temporary. And then on the other side of that is that open space and clarity that we so dearly are looking for.
Yeah. I had a little bit of not a breakthrough, but just an interesting perspective change. So for me, a big driving force that my ego or the voice in my head will play sometime is to, if I achieve this, then I can prove people wrong and they'll think of me in a different way. So for instance, Ryan and Kyle, I have a relationship with them where I want to prove that I'm enough. I want to prove that I'm smart. I want to prove that I'm capable. So like if I achieve X amount, like if I show up to Long Island and I'm in an Escalade and I'm getting out, and then they'll be like, "Oh my God, we were so wrong about Tyler." And it's like this stupid game that, and I imagine everyone has Ryan or Kyle in a situation where they imagine happening, where they come in and they see them, and the way that they feel that that person thinks about them changes because of that moment. But what if you change the perspective that they already feel that way about you? And how do you want them to feel about you? What if Ryan and Kyle already believe that I am enough, and they know that I'm smart, and they know that I'm capable of? And what does that mean for me? That means that I don't have to like rely on that I already am that. So like that was like a total different perspective change. It was so much more of an opening experience, and it made me feel totally different and more connected to them. And it was just a quick little shift in my head that drew me close to them. It's actually a really, I invite people, if they have a Ryan and Kyle in their head, and to prove them wrong, imagine them already believing that about you, and see how that feels.
Prove them right, or prove yourself right. That's what I would
Right.
counter to that, which would be exactly what you said. Was, what if Ryan and Kyle, or what if, let's leave Ryan and Kyle out of that, because right now, are Ryan and Kyle in your life right now?
No, not even.
No, not at all.
Right.
So they're basically, your mind will manifest an obstacle for you to overcome.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you really don't want is to believe that you are complete, and that you're powerful, and that you are awesome. That's what you really don't want.
Yeah.
Because
Do you have somebody like that?
Absolutely, Max. Yeah, Max is my Ryan and Kyle. So what my mind creates is this idea that I have to overcome, or prove to Max that I am enough. And once I do that, then I'll be complete. But there's always someone to do that with. So again, it's not that game that you have to win. The game is letting go of that, and actually falling into the idea that you are enough right now, and that you're awesome right now, and that you're exactly who you should be, and then proving that right.
I was also listening to this video of Paul Check yesterday, and the guy is like, "How do I love myself?" And he's like, starts laughing, and he's like, "Well," and we've referenced this before, but who do you have? What choice do you have not to love yourself? Who do you have until there's no like there's first he makes the point that your DNA, you are so unique because there's never been DNA like yours. There's never been experience like yours. You know, everything about you is completely unique and authentic. So and then he drives home the point that like, what choice do you have but to love yourself, because it's only you until the day you die. And he starts talking about how he talks to himself, and he loves himself. And part of me was like, man, I've really not like truly love myself, because I've judged it in a way that if I do love myself, then I'm being self-absorbed, or I'm being self-absorbed or cocky in a way by loving myself. But it was an arrogant. But when he like allowed himself to love himself, somebody who I respect, and somebody who people I respect looked up to, allowed himself to do that, I was like, oh shit, man, I'm gonna start fucking loving myself, and rooting myself on, and be my biggest fan. And it's only, it's been very short. It's just happened yesterday, but it was a very opening, and it was a very opening experience, and it allowed that judge or critic of you're being too self-absorbed to kind of like quiet it down, and be like, no, like, you're allowed to love yourself.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what we were talking about before, with overcoming and knowing that you are complete, and following through with the idea that you are complete, you're never going to have that obstacle to overcome. And what I have found is, the biggest ways to get to that point are actually following through with what your heart says.
Yeah.
So, which is challenging in a lot of ways because, it's not easy because you kind of got to let go of an old story and it's death. You know what I mean? It's painful. And a lot of the inward work is painful.
There's layers.
Ogres have layers.
You got to peel away the layers.
Got to peel
What
away
about
the
buffet?
layers. What about buffet? Everyone love buffet. Yeah. Another one that we talked about last night, and I'll throw this one at you, because actually it said, "I am infinite." Is that arrogant? Yeah, and like, who's thinking that might be arrogant, right? Again, that's an ego-driven idea.
Yeah.
This idea that like who you are, like, would you say a rabbit is arrogant, or there's a deer that's arrogant, or there's a great white shark is arrogant?
No,
it just is what it is.
No. Yeah.
So I think that's something to kind of like butt up against what we've been indoctrinated again, and we've been habitually uploaded into our psyches, is that like if you're a shining star, you better put a fucking drape over that, or people aren't going to like you. And I think that's one of the reasons why there aren't people who are as shining stars, because as we talked about before, I believe that people get exposed within themselves when they see somebody else shining. Right. So because people don't want to believe that they could be like that too.
So going back to the example before, when I'm like seeing other coaches succeed and do well, and I get self-conscious.
Yeah, your ego doesn't want you to do that.
I don't. Right.
And what's the proof?
Right.
Because if you did want that, then I don't like that, and that makes you feel uncomfortable, that would never exist.
Yeah.
So there is some kind of story right there in front of you, and as soon as you let go of that story, then you become, I'm so happy that they're there because that allows me permission to do it too. But most of the time, we're not willing to do that because we're addicted to the story that says that there's no way I can do that, and there's an excuse why they're there. Oh, they were born that way. Oh, they had millions of dollars. Oh, they have better genetics than me. And then you start to and then you will try to find evidence that that person has something extraordinary that makes you disqualified from being great. But the solution or the way past that is you basically sit long enough to understand that that belief is esoteric and no longer serves you and is actually worthless. That is how you overcome it. So it's like, how do I overcome like eating poorly? You eventually realize that eating poorly doesn't do anything good for you, and it's actually restricting you from being the person you want to be.
Talking about trying on a belief. So I'll give you a concrete example. I had a client last week who didn't believe in the universe.
Yep.
She was like, I don't trust in the universe. And I think we had talked about it last week, but I'll just briefly bring it back up.
So real quick, what comes up right away when someone says, I don't trust the universe?
For me, I'm like, why would you, like, how? Like, it's like so foreign to me. Like, why wouldn't you? Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, that doesn't make. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so that's you now. What about 15 years ago? Would you trust the universe?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Okay, so
I don't know.
All right, so let's go back to the concept we were talking about before. Whatever you believe, the universe will give you evidence of that.
Yeah.
So now use that information and bring it back to that client.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. I was trying on a belief. I'm like, if you like, why don't you try on the belief of trust in the universe? There's no harm in that.
Okay.
Like, what do you have to lose if you just maybe you don't believe it now, but is not believing in the universe serving you in any way? No? Okay. Why don't you just try on the belief of I trust in the universe? Why don't you just try on the belief that money flows to you? Why don't you try on the belief that the people in my life who are meant to help will come, will come to me. Why don't you try on those beliefs, right? Like, what's the negative to it? What's the downside? There is none.
So let's go to our personal examples of Ryan and Max. And again, like, I love Ryan and Kyle. I love Max. But the Max in my brain, and I imagine the Ryan and Kyle in your brain, are dragons that have to be slayed, right? And it actually
Correct.
probably affects our relationships with the actual Ryan, Kyle, and Max, right?
Right.
So for me, my little Sean says, if I be still for a second, I want you to love me.
Yeah.
I want you to care about me. I want you to notice me.
Yeah.
So that is the underlying of me trying to achieve.
Right.
Right? Because I want his love, his attention, and his praise.
Right.
So, intellectually and conceptually, what stops me from giving myself that love and praise? Right?
The story.
Well, nothing, right?
Oh, nothing. Yeah.
So that would be the follow through, would be, giving myself those things and following through with actions that are congruent with that. But also honoring that little boy who's scared and just being with it as long as necessary.
Yeah.
To transcend. And that's why I believe, again, a lot of people do not believe in meditation. A lot of people, want to do other things, and that's fine. For me personally, I have a good deal of experience with meditation. Going back to the whole Kyle thing, I committed to doing 100 days straight of an hour a day. Right now, I'm kind of recommitting myself toward meditation. I'm, getting those hours in. This morning, I did about a 90-minute meditation straight, and I'm looking to do a little bit more this afternoon. But that is how we give that little child the room to be seen and to be heard. And even talking about this here also in the Flow State podcast, I think that gives us the ability to be heard and putting it out there, because I think another profound step for a lot of people is when another human feels that, it's a lot different. It plucks a different chord.
For sure. Because like the thing is we all have these, it's like the human condition is that we believe that no one can believe what we're going through. Like, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've gone through. You don't know how I feel. But more than likely, anything that you've been through or feel, obviously they're severe circumstances, but I imagine most of like something you've felt before that you think is only foreign to you or that you're ashamed about or feel guilty of. There are plenty of other people in the world that are living that same story or living that through that. And you're absolutely right. Like the fact that it's now out of your head, and that's why another thing I think that I'm going to commit to is journaling. If somebody doesn't have a Sean or a Tyler to talk to, and that voice in that head is perpetuating, then they can at least get it down on paper. And I think that's a step in the right direction of it, rather than manifesting in your head and continuing to limit you. It could get out on paper and live on there rather than in your head, in a way.
Agreed. I think it's a profoundly powerful tool. And then even taking that one step further is, for me during therapy, was taking those letters, those notes, whatever, and how I felt, and actually reading them aloud to somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's what supercharged me in terms of my personal growth, is because it made it real. And even sometimes when you have again, I think selecting the right person is important, because you don't want someone who's trying to fix you. You want somebody who's open enough to just hear you. And obviously that's all we really need, just to be heard, right?
Yeah. Holding space.
Yeah. So finding that right person is important for everybody. And if it's someone who's really, really close, good. If it's someone who needs to be a little bit more distant, that's good too. but having that person to hold space for you, and then approaching those icky topics is super, super important. But also being honest with the person that you're working with so that you're not conflating relationships, and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, and non-ego based, non-pleaser based, because then that becomes an addiction sometimes as well. Like we become addicted to therapy, we become addicted to this person's approval, a teacher's
Right.
approval, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important to point out as well.
Yeah. I just started the book today, Mastery. Have you heard of it?
No, who's it by?
Robert Greene
Cool.
wrote the 48 Laws of Power, which probably he's best known for. But the beginning of Mastery, it starts out that, well, I guess the premise of the book are these people who reach mastery, the Leonardo da Vinci's, the Goethes, the Keats, the Buckminsters, the Temple
Darwins.
Grandins, the Darwins, yeah.
The Mozarts, the Fords.
Are you looking at it right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, but it starts out with connecting with something that you were passionate as a child, something that you were drawn to. And like right off the bat, I'm like, wow, this really resonates with me. What is something that, because when you have that there's something in us, I don't know if you want to call it the universe, you want to call it genetics, whatever, science, spiritual, doesn't matter. But his point is that within all of us, there's something that you're drawn to, something that you're passionate about. And over time, it just gets layered over, and maybe through what your parents want, maybe what others do,
Society wants.
Society wants, and you
Social
push that
roles.
down. Right. So the beginning of this book is like, how do you reconnect with that childlike passion? And when you can reconnect with that childlike passion, then that will set you on the path of purpose. And we've talked before that purpose shifts, right? Like maybe this year your your passion and your meaning is to be a master coach, a master motivator, and a master speaker. But maybe next year it shifts and it could be something completely different. Maybe it's to be a master YouTuber. And for me, I was actually connecting to the idea of, as a kid, I loved poetry, I loved music, and kind of reconnected with that. I love making people laugh. So I'm going to start making videos. Well, I'm going to start making videos that are like, Lonely Island, Lazy Sunday. Like that is like my dream right now, is to, create like Lazy Sunday type videos, and kind of just go from there. Is like where like as I thought about that idea, that's where like my inner child and my passion kind of went to.
Okay, cool. So it's funny because something came up last night again in this talk was, and I loved this idea, was, oftentimes we get very excited about doing a thing.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, so like, what do I have to do to get to that thing? But it's like that thing will become natural when we let go of the need to do the thing, or we don't even necessarily need to do that thing, but it gives us direction to point us to where we need to be, and to let go, or to love or accept about ourselves. So, so say like, and we've talked about this before, I'm really, really charged up about, coming up with a new coaching program.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I want to do this coaching program. And then all of a sudden it's like, I really don't want to do this. This isn't that great of an idea, blah, blah, blah. Boom. That right there is, you've come in contact with a story that you could potentially honor and hear, and be one with, right? And allow it to dissolve. And maybe after doing that, then that coaching thing becomes your highest calling. But the other thing that might happen is maybe it gave you access to something even bigger. Right? And what happens for some of us, and this is me a lot too, is like, I kind of go through the first steps and I'm like, well, this thing doesn't really charge me up anymore. Like I'm ready to do it, but I'm like, eh. And maybe this is kind of going full circle back to this fitness and wellness challenge. This fitness and wellness challenge was the pole in the pole vault. It launched me up, but now I'm like holding on to this. I'm like, this really doesn't excite me anymore. That's because it got me to the point where I needed to be to let go and just start floating.
Right.
So now I'm at a point like, okay, now I go inward again, and I find the next step by being silent and by listening to the silence, because that's going to push me to the next point, because now I've learned multiple things about myself and execution of certain things. I help people in the process, but is it my highest calling right now to like continue to do this fitness and wellness challenge this way? No. But what I do feel is that there's a resistance, and in listening to that resistance, there's going to be new answers that come to me, and they'll tell me my next step.
Yeah. And how much growth was there in so many things in that? One, you had an idea, you implemented it, you took action. Most people don't do that. You learn from the process, even though like we want to judge and be like, how many people got X out of it, but how much of it is just about the process and what you learn from the process and not being tied to the outcome. So now when you go to do the next thing, you have a reference point of, okay, I'm going to be involved in the process. I'm going to be passionate about the process. And I've also gotten the reps of having an idea and implementing it and taking action, which speed of implementation and action, the more I think about it and feel about it, the more I believe that's where most people, or for myself, struggle, is just the inability to really take action, because it's scary but the more you do it, the less of the resistance it becomes, the less scary it becomes.
You're absolutely right. So we're kind of approaching that 1 hour mark here, Tyler, if we're not already over it. Anything else for today that you wanted to kind of throw out there?
That was about it. Yeah, that was really nice. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, obviously the energy was different this week. Not bad, not good, just different. And I think we learn a little bit from every conversation that we get, and maybe it might not hit right away. It might take a week or 2 weeks to click, but I think if we're kind of in this place, we're always going in the right direction. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree. And I think today I'll just like, in our conversation, just looking back at it, just for having a feeling of like calm, like being downregulated, less stressed, there's just an air of calm that I felt today. So I think that was really behind me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, if we need to get a hold of you, how can we reach you?
You can reach me on Instagram, Tyler LaFlock. And then if you click on my link, that'll take you to an application to apply for Ripped and Resilient. I have 4 people who are going through the program right now. We are a week in. I'm extremely excited to be helping them in this process. It can be, once again, be done from anywhere and anywhere. So if you're not in New York, that's fine. You can do it from a laptop, as long as you have access to some space and an internet connection. I believe I can serve you and help you.
That's awesome, Tyler. And I'm Sean LaFlock. You can be at Sean@CrossFitDarbyBeach.com. I also have Flock Fitness on my Instagram, and flockfitness.com is my website. I am also available on YouTube at Flock Fitness as well. I put up some great content. Workout videos are coming. More content on warm-ups, choosing your next pair of running shoes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have been a content machine, so I'm trying to get out as much as I can to be able to help more and more people. And even in saying that, I think there's an egoic piece of me that just wants to, be like everybody else. So I think that for me personally, I want to do some work in really listening to my higher self and coming out with material that I want to make and put out there. Because right now I'm kind of thinking like I want to help everybody, but I'm not committed to it. I think our highest calling is really making a ripple effect in the world. And if I'm not feeling that, then I'm not actually putting out content that people are going to want, right?
Yeah.
So I think like if you put an Instagram post out there that says, I want people to like this, it usually doesn't get a lot of likes. if you put out an Instagram post that is really from a connected piece of you, it usually goes viral. So that I think is a noticing that I have. And then maybe that's some of the content I'm putting out is like what I think people will like versus what I love. So,
right.
Yeah, I think
If
a little musing toward the end here.
Yeah. Since I've been doing a lot of work on the Instagram front, one thing that's been clarifying for me is, okay, what are the pain points that somebody's experiencing, and what is something in my own experience that draws a connection to that? And if we can find a balance between that, I can speak from an authentic experience, and I can show you how I got from where you are to where I am now. I think that's been really valuable in creating a connection with the audience that follow me. So I invite you to imagine and maybe even talk to people who you want to serve. Who's your ideal client? Who do you ultimately want to serve? Who do you think? So think about that, and I invite you to.
I like that.
To do
like
some
that,
reflection
Tyler.
on that, and then maybe talk to them, find out what those pain points are, and I imagine you'll have a similar connection to where you've come from that, and how you've grown into that, and then that will be like kind of like a drawing board for content.
Awesome. I appreciate that point of advice, Tyler. I will talk to you next week, buddy.
All right. Love you.
Love it. Bye.
Bye.